Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Faizati dari Movie, student number 2010-2050-01. So today I want to review film with the title The Gifted, so please listen to me carefully and let me begin. This story begins with 7-year-old Mary Adler lives with her uncle Frank. On the first day of school, he demonstrates extraordinary math to impress his teacher Bonnie. There at the first he belittled the average child his age. Mary was offered a private school scholarship for gifted children, but Frank refused based on his family's experience with similar schools. He feared Mary wouldn't become a promising mathematician who dedicated to unsolved Navier-Stokes problem before taking her own life. When Mary was 6 months old, Mary has been living with Frank, a former lecturer turned boatman since that. Frank insists his sister wants Mary to be in a normal public school and have a childhood, and she didn't have. Fearing the judge would rule and he wouldn't lose Mary, Frank accepts a compromise brokered by his lawyer judge, who sees Mary placed in the forced care and attending the private school Evelyn wants to enroll in. He explains to Evelyn, who has become a mathematician, that Diana has solved the Navier-Stokes problem, but determined that the solution should be withheld until Evelyn's death. Knowing that it meant everything to Evelyn to see Diane solve the problem, Frank offers Evelyn the opportunity to publish Diane's work if she refused to object. To get Mary's strike, Evelyn significantly agreed. The film ends Mary pressuring Frank back to public school while taking college-level courses in the morning.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, good morning. Before I start this video, I want to introduce myself first. My name is Adinda Nabila with student ID number 2010205002. I'm an English student of Islamic State University of Raden Patah, Palembang. Well, on this occasion, I want to report my summary about a film entitled Gifted. So let me begin. In Santo Petersburg, Florida, 7-year-old Mary Adler lived with her uncle and de facto guardian, Francis or Frank. Her best friend is her 40-year-old neighbor, Roberta Taylor. On her first day of first grade, she showed remarkable mathematical talent, which impressed her teacher, Bonnie Stephenson. There, despite her initial disdain for average children her own age and her burden with their classwork, she brings to bond with them when she brings her one-eyed cat, Fred, for show and tell. Later, she defends a classmate from a bully on the school bus by hitting the bully in the face. After the incident, the participle encouraged Frank to send Mary to a private school for gifted children, offering the opportunity of the scholarship. However, Frank turns it down. Based on his family experience with similar school, he fears Mary will not have a chance at a normal childhood. It emerges that Mary's mother, Diane, had been a promising mathematician dedicated to Navier-Stokes problem, one of the unsolved Millennium Press problem, before taking her own life when Mary was 6 months old. The participle contact Frank Esterage mother and Mary's maternal grandmother, Evelyn, who seeks to gain custody of Mary and move her to a magazine. Mary is devastated at being placed in foster care, and her foster father says she refused to see Frank. The film ends with Mary back in the custody of Frank, returning to the public school and socializing with children her age while taking college-level course. Okay guys, I think that's all from my summary for 13 meeting. Thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wedding Dress is tell about a mother named Gowon who works in a boutique as a wedding dress designer. One day, there was a bride who wanted to buy a design dress from Gowon, but Gowon refused, and it turned out that she had made it for her daughter Sora. It turns out that Gowon has a cancer and no one knows about it, and her brother realizes why Gowon has changed recently. At school, Sora is always alone and avoids all her friends. One day, Sora had a fight with her friend Gina, and Gowon was called to school. The teacher explained that it was not the first time Sora had a fight. Arriving at home, her mother explained to Sora, but Sora said she wanted to live alone and also without the help of her mother. But that's not true. Sora just wants her mother to be there for her until she grows up. One day, Sora found out that her mother was sick, and she pretended not to know. Sora knew that her mother's time was just around the corner, and trying to enjoy the remaining time, Sora again corrected all her mistakes thanks to her mother's words. Gowon attended the Sora ballet performance even though his condition was bad. Sora apologized and thanked to her mother over a radio broadcast, and in the morning Sora woke up and found her mother had died. But Sora managed to spend the day well until she grew up and got married in a wedding dress made by her mother.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we start to our topic review for today, I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Indonesia with the number 29205004 and I'm a student of English Education major in Raden Fatah Islamic University, Palembang. So in this video, I choose wedding dress as our topic review for today. So this film tells of a bride fashion designer as well as a single parent named Sogowon who has a small daughter named Jangsura. The story begins with the exchange of dresses to be worn by a bride. Sogowon is asked to deliver it. While at Sora's school, it rains, and Sora doesn't bring an umbrella, and she waited for the rain to stop. Her mother quickly came to pick up Sora. They both delivered the mixed wedding clothes to the venue, where the bride was already crying. Just imagine that her clothes only arrived 10 minutes before the event started. Sogowon is very busy with her work, while Sora always feels less skirts for so that she becomes a stubborn child and doesn't care about the people around her. Maybe because her mother often left her to work, Sora became a child who was too mature for her age. In an instant, her mother changed. At first, Sogowon was a workaholic. She spends her time in the office. Even Sora is often invited to her office. However, after the verdict came out, the mother decided to spend more time with her only child. She knew that she would not live long. Sora was a bit surprised by the change her mother had experienced. Her mother always asked what Sora wanted and then bought everything she wanted. Gowon actually has stomach cancer. When she came home, her house was decorated with all the birthday party knickknacks. Sora didn't care. She went to her room and did her homework wearing a birthday party hat. But Sora is a smart child. It didn't take long for her to know that her mother was seriously ill. Sora always tries to smile in front of her mother, accompany her to work. Sora asked why her mother didn't wear a wedding dress when she got married and asked her to try on the wedding dress she made. Then at the end, they both danced. Okay, that's all for my review topic for today. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
My name is Nimas Marani Salima with student number 2010505, and here I want to have movie review summary. And without any further ado, let's get started. Petersburg, Florida, 7-year-old Mary Edgar lives with her uncle and de facto guardian, Francis Frank. Her best friend is her 43-year-old neighbor, Roberto Tyler. On her first day of first grade, she shows remarkable mathematical talent, which impresses her teacher, Bonnie Stevenson. There, despite her initial disdain for average children her own age and her boredom with their classwork, she begins to bond with them when she brings her one-eyed cat, Fred, for show and tell. Later, she defends a classmate from a bully on the school by hitting the bully in the face. So, after the incident, the principal encouraged Frank to send Mary to private school for gifted children. Offering the opportunity of a scholarship, however, Frank turned it down. Based on his family experience with similar schools, he fears Mary will not have a chance at a normal childhood. It emerged that Mary's mother, Diana, had been a promising mathematician, dedicated to the Navier-Stokes problem, or one of the unsolved Millennium Prize problems. Before taking her own life when Mary was 6 months old, Mary has lived with Frank, a former college professor turned boat repairman ever since. The principal contacts Frank's estranged mother and Mary's maternal grandmother, Evelyn, who seeks to gain custody of Mary and move her to Massachusetts. Evelyn believes that Mary is a one-in-a-billion mathematical prodigy who should be specially tutored in preparation for a life devoted to mathematics. much as Diana was. However, Frank is adamant that his sister would want Mary to be in a normal public school and have the childhood she didn't have. Incurred, Frank argues that Evelyn parenting deprived Diana of normal life. Evelyn had sent away a boy Diana was in love with, which was when Diana first attempted suicide. Evelyn argues that Frank is in no position to be a guardian, working a low-paying job without health insurance, worried that the job will rule against him and he will lose Mary completely. Frank accepts a company brokered by his lawyer Greg Cullen that sees Mary placed in foster care and attend the private school, where Evelyn wants to have her enrolled.
My name is Sharati Amarsari with my college number 2010-205006 and I am from English Education 1. In this video, I'm gonna read a summary of film Wedding Dress. Wedding Dress tells of certain mother's clothing designer named So Go-eun, who has a child named Sora. Sora was described as a bright child but was unable to get along well with her friends. One day, Go-eun found out that she was diagnosed with stomach cancer and she didn't tell to Sora. In a moment, Go-eun's attitude changed. She was not workaholic and didn't spend much time in the office. She decided to spend more time with Sora since she knew that she wouldn't have a long life. Go-eun also prepared a present for Sora when she left her. Sora was a little surprised by the changes from her mother. Her mother often asks her about what Sora wants and then her mother will buy it. But Sora is a clever daughter. She knows why her mother acted the way she did. Sora knows that her mother has a severe illness. On finding out, Sora tried to give her mother everything she wanted. Go-eun's condition got worse, and Sora decided to keep her mother. At night, while at the hospital, Sora fell asleep when she listened to the radio, and Go-eun heard a radio broadcast reading a letter, and the letter is from Sora to her. And Go-eun feels so bad to Sora as her mother, and she cried out of sadness and felt guilt. The next morning, Sora wakes up and chooses not to go to school. She wanting to sit with her mother for the rest of the day. And Sora saw her mother fall into a deep sleep, and Sora smiled and she said, "It's okay, Mom, you can rest. I know you are tired." And then she came out of the room and she cried. At that moment, she knew that her mother was gone. Her mother's is died.
The film tells about an uncle named Frank raised his niece Mary alone in Florida. Frank raised Mary like his own child after the death of Mary's mother, who committed suicide when Mary was 6 months old. Mary is a very smart child and can solve very difficult math problems when she is 7 years old. Mary's grandmother, Lindsay Duncan, knows Mary's talent is the result of Mary's mother's intelligence. Mary's mother was a very smart person and her mother forced her to become a mathematician, unable to face the pressure of heavy education and knowledge. Mary's mother finally decided to kill herself. Frank, knowing his mother's intentions and not wanting Mary to end up with his mother, finally decided to raise Mary and take Mary away from her grandmother. Mary's grandmother tries to separate Frank and Mary throws the corpse and tries to get Mary's custody to fall into her hands.
Wedding Dress. This movie tells the story of a mother named Go-hoon who works as a wedding dress designer. She is very busy and gives a lack of attention to her daughter's life, Sora. As a result, Sora becomes cold to her mother and keeps away from her friends. One day, Go-hoon tries to fix his relationship with Sora, starting from buying new games on TV, taking her out for walks and picnics, to make Sora a wedding dress for her when she wants to get married. Go-hoon also tries spending as much time as possible with Sora and teaching her tips like togetherness and always prepare for things to come. Sora started to open her heart to Go-hoon, and Go-hoon, as time passed, the disease started consuming her body. Meanwhile, Sora tries to fix her friendship with her ballet classmate, who she always avoids. While celebrating her birthday with his mother, Sora and Go-hoon had a fight, even though in the end, Go-hoon still tries to be strong to face reality. Until Sora finally found out about her mother's condition. She tried hard to do what her mother said, As a result, she made many friends and learned to refrain from small problems. At night, when Sora slept with Gehun in the hospital, the radio broadcast read Sora's letter to Gehun, who finally died with happiness. At the end of the story, Sora, who is an adult, wears a wedding dress designed by her mother to get married, and from them we learn that mother's love and sacrifice is eternal and unconditionally.
Wedding dress. This film tells about a mother and her daughter. Gon is a single mother who has a daughter named Sora who is still in elementary school. Gon works as a wedding dress designer. Gon has cancer which causes her to have regular checkup and take medicine. Towards Sora, she always seems strong, tough, and cheerful. Sora doesn't know about her mother's illness. Sora is an introvert child. There is what causes Sora didn't have friends either at school or at her ballet dancing lesson. Even Sora always skipped her ballet class. Seeing Sora's social condition, Gohan felt very confused and sad. She just wanted Sora to have good social relationships, to have lots of friends, and wanted to see her daughter follow ballet competition. Over time, it was uncommon for Sora to actually see her mother in pain and vomiting in a bathroom, so that Sora couldn't show that. In addition, Sora also knew that her mother often took medicine in every condition, but she didn't dare to ask directly to her mother. She pretended not to know her mother's sick condition, but she still tried want to know about her mother's illness by asking directly to her aunt, who was her mother's sister-in-law. Sora told her aunt not to tell her mother about her knowing her mother's illness. Sora gradually begins to understand her mother's hopes for her. She also tried to improve her school relations with the people around her. She also became diligent in practicing ballet so that she can take part in ballet competition that would be held soon. When Goon's condition was getting bad and forced herself to be treated at the hospital, Sora was very sad and tried to make her mother happy. Sora enlisted the help from her friend to visit her mother at the hospital. Seeing Sora bringing her friends over to show her, Goon felt very happy. Moreover, she also knew that Sora will be participating in a ballet competition in the near future, and she tried her best so that came to see her daughter's performance. Everything what Sora did managed to make Gohan happy and became relieved to leave Sora. Before she died, Gohan had prepared a wedding dress that Sora would wear later.
In this video, I will read a summary of the wedding dress film. This film tells the story of a mother who works as a wedding dress designer. She has a daughter named Sora. Sora is tall, a close child. She is intelligent but doesn't get along well with her peers. One day, the mother was diagnosed with gastric cancer. She didn't tell this to her girl. In an instant, her mother changed. At first, her mother was a workaholic. She spends her time in the office. Even Sora is often invited to her office. However, Sora is a smart child. It didn't take long for her to know that her mother was seriously ill. After finding out, she tried to grant all of his mother's requests without her mother knowing that Sora actually knew about her mother's illness. Going to ballet lesson, combing his own hair, making friends with her other people, and all his mother's requests she has been granted. Before her mother died, she had prepared a special design for Sora's wedding dress. At the end of the film, Sora, who has grown up, wears the wedding dress that her mother had designed for her.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Erna Elpiza, with study number 2010-2050-11. Today, I will report a summary of Wedding Dress movie. Let me begin. The movie Wedding Dress tells the story of a mother who has a little girl, but she is very busy, which makes her child less attention from a mother. Her father had died while her mother worked as a dress designer.
The mother also made a wedding dress design for her daughter to marry when she was an adult. If her mother works, the little girl is with her aunt. At one point, the mother changed. The mother came home early and cared more for the child. She also played with the child and had a picnic. The mother also teaches the child to be an independent child without a mother. And in fact, her mother suffers from cancer. Her life will not be long anymore. The child was very sad. Then the child really enjoyed the moment of being together with her mother. The daughter wrote a letter to her mother and broadcast it on the radio. Her mother was very happy. But the next day, her mother died. The little girl became an independent child and already have many friends. When she grew up, she got married and she wore a dress her mother had made especially for her. The end. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
The essence of the movie Gifted is about a single man named Frank Adler who struggles to raise and take custody of his late sister-daughter, Mary, in a beach town in Florida. Frank is well aware of the potential of his nephew, who is almost as genius as his mother who committed suicide. The grandmother, who has big plans for her granddaughter, finally threatens to separate Frank and Mary. Frank certainly didn't want to just sit there because he loved Mary so much, and he didn't want her to be like her mother who died because of Evelyn's selfishness. Until finally, Frank and Evelyn face each other when the custody case of Mary was brought to court. Will Frank be able to win custody of Mary and Mary can get an education and a decent and proper life for the size of a genius child her age? During custody battle, story unfolds about relationship between Evelyn, Frank, and Diane. The case goes private with no clear resolution in sight.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Aisyah Cahaya Abibila with my student number 2010-2050-13. I would like to review the movie. The title is The Gifted. This film tells the story of a child named Mary Adler. Mary is a child prodigy who is very smart and has extraordinary mathematical talent at the age of only 7 years. Her mother Diane died by suicide when Mary was 6 months old, and for 7 years Mary lived with her uncle named Frank. Frank is a single man raising his niece. Frank wants Mary to live her life like any other little girl in general. He asks Mary to go to school, although at first Mary refused and chose homeschooling, and finally agreed and she went by bus. And when the lesson started, Mary seemed bored with such as a basic lesson for her, until she was asked with various additions by her teacher, but she could answer all correctly. But one day, Frank gets involved in custody battle with Mary's grandmother, Evelyn. So Evelyn really wanted to take advantage of her granddaughter's talents, whereas all this time, the grandmother had never considered that Mary was her granddaughter. But because she just found out that Mary has the same talent as her mother, so her grandmother did various ways to snatch her granddaughter, until the judge decided that Mary would like with her adopted family. Mary became very angry with Frank because she felt that Frank broke his promise. The following weeks, Frank learned that Evelyn had done Mary's beloved cat, so he immediately wanted to see Mary. There was Evelyn who was watching Mary who was studying. Then Mary immediately ran away because she was angry with Frank. Frank tries to make Mary understand, and Mary is so depressed with her life that she wants to be like the little girl she used to be again. Frank also talks to Evelyn that he doesn't want his niece to end up like his sister Diane, and also says that Evelyn only noticed Diane's talents without giving her affection. Evelyn finally agreed to Mary to return to live with Frank. In the end, Mary became one of the easiest students in a well-known university and continued to carry on with her daily life as usual. Thank you.
The movie tells about 7-year-old Mary Adler lives with her uncle and the foster guardian, Francis Frank. Her best friend is her 43-year-old neighbor, Roberto Taylor. On her first day of first grade, she shows remarkable mathematical talent, which impressed her teacher, Bunny Stevenson. There, despite her initial disdain for average children her own age and her burden with their classwork, she begins to bond with them when she brings her one-eyed cat. Later, she defends a classmate from bully on the school bus by hitting the bully in the face. After the incident, the principal encouraged Frank to send Mary to a private school from gifted children, offering the opportunity of a scholarship. It emerged that Mary's mother, Diane, had been a promising mathematician, dedicated to the Navier-Stokes problem before taking her own life when Mary was 6 months old. Mary has lived with Frank, a former college professor turned board repairman ever since. And however, Frank is adamant that his sister would want Mary to be in a normal public school and have the childhood she didn't have. The foster parents live 20 minutes from Frank's home, and Frank will be entitled to scheduled visits, and Mary will be able to decide where she wants to live after her 12th birthday. Mary is devastated at being placed in foster care, and her foster father says she refused to see Frank, knowing that it meant everything to Evelyn to see Diane solve the problem. Frank offers Evelyn the opportunity to publish Diane's work if she drops her objection to him having custody of Mary. And the film ends with Mary back in the custody of Frank, returning to public school and socializing with children her age, while taking college labor courses.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Fanur Saini, with student ID number 2010-2050-15. So today I would like to tell you about the summarizing of wedding dress. Let's begin. A single mother named Gowon is busy working as a bridal designer. She works with her best friend, but at that time her doctor's voice called her and asked her to pick up her at school. Gowon immediately took her doctor to her school in a hurry. When the car headed towards the academic building, Gowon told Sora to always provide an umbrella this rainy season. Arriving at academic building, Sora immediately got out of the car and entered the academic building. But it turns out that without Gowon's knowledge, Sora does not practice ballet because he is afraid of her friends. Then Sora went into the taekwondo room and asked the taekwondo teacher for permission to ride there until her mother picked her up. Until one time, Sora, who didn't know anything about going to school as usual, Sora reunited with the taekwondo coach, and Sora suggests that she distributed flyers while also giving out sweets to attract students. At school, Sora was always alone and tries to avoid his ballet friends. In such story, in the reality, Gwen has a very severe disease that results in her not having a long time. So every day she spends time with her doctor until where she entered in the hospital. Her doctor was so sad to see her mother, so she tries to live independent and she can do it. The next day, her mother died, and her children was so sad and cannot believe it. But her daughter Sora can accept it in the next day. The story ends when Sora used a wedding dress which made by her mother, and the story is end. I think enough. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Gifted tells the story of Frank Edward, who raised a little girl at the age of 7. Mary. His nature has extraordinary elegance in mathematics. They live in the coastal area of Florida. Mary spreads to school at her young age. The abilities of normal children her age. The school also suggests that Mary be sent to a special school, but very fast. Their whereabouts are known to Evelyn, Frank's mother, and Mary's grandmother's friends to check their smart boy, but honestly decided that he is the one to take care of him.
Meeting 13. Wedding Dress. Wedding Dress tells the story of a single mother named Si-Goyun who works as a wedding dress designer. He has a beautiful only daughter named Jang Sora. They seem to live happily, but behind the happiness is hidden a secret between the two of them. Goyun has a deadly stomach cancer and she tries to hide it from Sora. Though secretly, Sora already knows her mother's illness. Another surprising thing is that Sora has OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, which means she has a condition that prevents her from sharing food and drink with other people. Sora automatically grows into a child who is shunned by all her friends.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Zulia Terlestari with my student number 2020-2019. Okay, I want to review about Gifted film. This film tells the story of the struggle for custody of a 7-year-old genius. Her name is Mary. The struggle for custody of her is continued in court by her uncle Frank and her grandmother Evelyn. Frank works to repair a damaged ship on the coast of Florida, who lives with Mary, and Evelyn tries to take Mary from Frank after knowing that she is a child genius. But all doesn't work smoothly because at the trial their lawyers didn't find the end point, so the two lawyers agreed that Mary would be raised in a foster family for Mary's future. Evelyn and Frank were able to visit the family. After Mary was given to the adopted family, Frank felt very lonely without Mary. A few weeks later, Frank visited Mary but wasn't allowed to because Mary was still angry with Frank. It made Frank very nervous. When Mrs. Barney, Mary's teacher, was at school, she shows Mary's cat on the bulletin board that read animals to be adopted. Mrs. Barney told Frank. Then he immediately took Mary's cat and knew that Evelyn had dumped Mary's cat. After that, Frank immediately went to Mary's adopted family's house. And it turned out that Evelyn was there with the math teacher who taught Mary. Mary immediately believed when she saw Frank. Then Frank chased Mary. Frank apologized and had hugged Mary for giving him to someone else. At first, Mary was very angry. Then she melted and said she was very depressed living in that house. In the end, Mary's life stretched Frank's size, and Mary attended math class at one of the best universities and still behaved like children her age. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tasha Anura. My student ID number is 2020-205020. Now I would like to review Gifted film. In St. Petersburg, Florida, 7-year-old Mary Adler lives with her Uncle Frank. On the first day of school, she demonstrates extraordinary math to impress her teacher Bonnie. There at first she belittled the average child her age. Mary was offered a private school scholarship for gifted children, but Frank refused. Based on her family's experiences with similar schools, she feared Mary would not become a promising mathematician dedicated to the unsolved Navier-Stokes problem before taking her own life when Mary was 6 months old. Mary has been living with Frank, a former lecturer turned boatman, ever since. Frank insists his sister wants Mary to be in a normal public school and have a childhood she didn't have. Frank will be entitled to a scheduled visit and Mary will be able to decide where she will live after the age of 12. Mary is devastated at the orphanage and her adoptive father explains he refuses to see Frank. Frank picks up the cat and learns that Fred was brought in due to allergy problems, realizing that Evelyn, who is allergic to cats, is supervising Mary's education. He explains to Evelyn, who has become a mathematician, that Diane has solved the Navier-Stokes problem, but determines that the solution must be held until Evelyn's death. Knowing that it means everything to Evelyn to see Diane solve the problem, Frank offers Evelyn the opportunity to publish Diane's work if she refuses to object. To get Mary's right, Evelyn reluctantly agreed. Movie ends, Mary goes back to Foster, Frank back to public school while taking college level courses in the morning. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Pilandia Seventrinanda. My study number 2020-2050-21. I will tell about the movie Gifted. The film Gifted tells the story of a man named Frank Alder, who gets involved in a fight for custody of his niece Mary. After his brother died, Frank Alder accepted the responsibility of being the guardian of his Mary. Frank also had to first want some of his plans in future in order to nurture and care for Mary. At the age of 7 years, Mary has an above average level of intelligence, especially in mathematics. Just like her late mother, Mary was able to solve math problems with a high level of difficulty at a very young age. But his dance necessarily Mary liked by many people. She doesn't even have friend the same age, Robert Taylor. He's the only actor who always pays attention to Mary. One day, Frank is called by the school after Mary gets into a fight with a student. In the consolation session, Frank was again asked to consider enrolling Mary in a special school for junior children. For the entire time, Frank furious because he did not went to his knew how far so far the same fate as then. The situation actually when the school involves Evelyn, who has been wanting custody of the green gown.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I will review about film Gift. On her first day of first grade, she knows remarkable mathematical talent, which is praises her teacher, Bonnie Stevenson. That is, despite her initial disdain for average children her own age and near burdened with their classwork, she begins to bond with them when she brings her one-eyed cat, Fred, for show and tell. Later, she defends a classmate from a bully on the school by bus hitting the bully in the face. After the incident, the principal encouraged Fred to send Mary to a private school for gay children, offering the opportunity of a scholarship. However, Frank turned it down. Based on his family experience with similar school, he fears Mary will not have a chance at a normal childhood. Mary is devastated as being placed in foster care, and her foster father says she refused to see Frank. The film ends with Mary back in the custody of Frank. Returning to public school and socializing with their children her age while taking college level courses.
This film tells about a single mother, Go-woon. She worked in a boutique as a designer of wedding dress. After got a call from her daughter Sora, Go-woon picked her up at school. Her mother took her to ballet lesson. Without her mother's knowledge, Sora didn't join the course and avoided her friends when they went to home. Sora was hiding in a taekwondo room and asking for permission to wait there. One day, Go-woon went to her work. There was a couple that interested in her wedding dress design. Go-woon softly refused and told that dress already belonged to someone. That dress actually was made for her daughter Sora. One day, Go-woon's sister came to Korea to commemorate the day of their mother's death. After that, Go-woon's vision was getting blurry and her body was sweating. Finally, she got unconscious. In hospital, it was revealed that she had been suffering from gastric cancer stadium 1. And she didn't tell anyone about that. Go-woon said sorry to her brother for that. Sora didn't know that. She got to school as usual. Go-woon was cheering up Sora in her birthday. She bought her a bicycle in that day and taught her. Sora said the bicycle was too big and Go-woon said so she could use it in the next year. She tried her best to give Sora every best memory with her. Sora knew that her mother didn't feel well. Sora asked her aunt, Will her mother be okay? Her aunt explained that her mother will be okay. Sora knew her aunt was lying. She asked how long will her mother last. Her aunt said she didn't know, but her mother was a strong woman. After that, she told her aunt to keep it as a secret. In the night, Gowon suddenly got unconscious again, and she was taken to the hospital. Sora told about what her mother said to face the problem. After that, she tried to fix all of her problems. She joined her ballet class and fixed her friendship with Gina. Gowon was relieved. At least, Sora didn't feel lonely when she left one day. Her wedding dress for Sora was finished, but her condition was getting worse day by day. Whereas Sora will appear as a ballerina. Gowon attended in the event to see her daughter, even though she couldn't see clearly. In the next day, Sora finally knew that her mother was gone. She tried to not believe it, but she had to accept that. This film ends when Sora was about to get married. She was very happy in her wedding dress that her mother prepared a long time ago.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Rizka Anissa from class English Education 1, student ID number 2020205024. In this video, I will read a summary of the film Gifted. The film Gifted tells the story of a man named Frank Adler who is involved in the struggle for custody of his niece Mary. After his brother's death, Frank Adler accepts the responsibility of being the guardian of his niece Mary. Frank also had to postpone some of his plans in the future in order to nurture and care for Mary. At the age of 7 years, Mary has an above average level of intelligence, especially in mathematics. Just like her late mother, Mary was able to solve math problems with a high level of difficulty at a very young age. But this doesn't necessarily make Mary liked by many people. She doesn't even have friends the same age. Robert the Tailor is the only neighbor who always pays attention to Mary. One day, Frank is called by the school after Mary gets into a fight with a student. In this conversation, Frank was again asked to consider enrolling Mary in a special school for genius children. For the nth time, Frank refused because he didn't want to see his nephew suffer the same fate as Diane. The situation echoes when the school involves Evelyn, who has been winning custody of her granddaughter.
In St. Petersburg, Florida, 7-year-old Mary Adler lives with her uncle and de facto guardian, Frank. Her best friend is 43-year-old neighbor, Roberta Taylor. On the first day of first grade, she showed extraordinary mathematical talent. This impressed the teacher, Bonnie Stevenson. There, although she initially disdains ordinary kids her age and gets bored with their classwork, she begins to bond with them when he brings the one-eyed cat Fred for show. Later, she defended her classmate from bullies on the school bus by hitting him in the face. After the incident, the principal encouraged Frank to send Mary to a private school for gifted children, offering her a scholarship opportunity. However, Frank refused. Based on his family's experiences with similar schools, he feared Mary would not have the opportunity to have a normal childhood. It turned out that Mary's mother, Diane, had become a promising mathematician dedicated to the Navier-Stokes problem, one of the unsolved Millennium Prize problems. But Diane committed suicide when Mary was 6 months old. Mary lives with Frank, a former college professor who has been a board retirement ever since. The principal contacts Frank, estranged mother, and Mary's maternal grandmother, Evelyn, who seek custody of Mary and move her to Massachusetts. Evelyn believes that Mary is a 1-in-billion math prodigy who should be specially mentored in preparation for a life devoted to mathematics, as is Diane. However, Frank insisted that his sister wants Mary to be in regular public school and have a childhood she didn't have. The film ends with Mary back in the custody of Frank, returning to public school and socializing with children her age while taking college-level courses.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Isan Syahada with student ID number 2020-2050-26. Today I want to report the summary Gifted movie. Let me begin. Gifted film tells the story of a little girl who is clever in doing math. She lives with her uncle. Her uncle name is Frank. The little girl's name is Mary. Mary was a genius when she was a child. Mary's school is very bored because the lessons taught by the teacher are very basic. The teacher was astonished when Mary does a math problem. She solves it very quickly. The teacher who thought Mary was a very curious. She also looks for information about Frank's family, and it turned out that Mary's mother is someone who is clever at math. Mary's mother's name is also in the museum, but her mother committed suicide 6 years ago. But when her grandma found out that Mary was a genius like her mother, she wanted to take Mary. Frank and her grandmother fight over Mary custody, and the result of the judges' decision are Mary will be raised by adoptive parents, so that Mary's future is better. But Mary's life there made her sad and depressed. Frank finally picked up Mary and apologized. Mary also lives with Frank then. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rainur Perlianti. My ID student number 2020-5027. Summary Gifted. Tell the story. Frank Adler, a single man who works freelance repairman and lives a trailer park on the Florida coast, has been the guardian of his 7-year-old niece Mary Adler. She was born after her mother, Frank's sister Diane Adler, committed suicide. At the time, Frank was a professor of philosophy at Boston University. He moved with Mary in an attempt to escape. Like her mother, Mary was a mathematician, of which Frank was well aware. Frank has been homeschooling Mary until now, and in effort to protect her from people like her running away from Mary's grandmother, who wanted her to become a mathematician and fight for Mary's custody. Frank finally decided to send Mary to a regular public school in an attempt to socialize her two other children and make her feel like a normal child. With the neighbors, adult Roberta Taylor, Mary's only true friend apart from Frank. Bonnie Stephenson, Mary's teacher at school, knows Mary's math skill and background. Evelyn finds out where Mary and Frank, disagreeing with either of Frank's choice, Evelyn demands full custody, which is highlight the entire dynamic that exists between Evelyn, Frank, and Diane. The film ends Mary fostering Frank in public school while taking college-level courses in the morning. Finish. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Give movie tells the story of a man named Frank Adler who gets involved in the fight for custody of his niece, Mary. Since his brother's death, Frank Adler has accepted the responsibility of being guardian to his niece, Mary. At the age of 7 years, Mary has an above-average level of intelligence, especially in mathematics. Just like her late mother, Mary was able to solve math problems with high level of difficulty at a very young age. But this does not necessarily make Mary liked by many people. She doesn't even have friends the same age. Roberta Taylor is the only neighbor who always devoted her attention to Mary. One day, Frank is called by the school after Mary gets into a fight with a student. In this consultation session, Frank was again asked to consider enrolling Mary in special school for genius children. For the umpteenth time, Frank refused because he did not want to see his nephew suffer the same fate as his sister, Diane. The situation escalated when the school involved Evelyn, who had the wanted custody of her daughter because Evelyn is only thinking about developing Mary's talent. Frank disagreed. When Frank wanted to pick up Mary at her foster parents' house, Mary immediately ran away when she saw Frank. Then Frank chased after Mary and apologized to Mary for leaving it to her foster parents, and explained to Evelyn that Diane would publish a book about millennium problems after Evelyn died. The reason is because Evelyn never considered Diane as a child. She only focused on her talent. Frank asked his sister to immediately publish her book and not take custody of Mary again. Then Evelyn accepted the offer and burst into tears, saying her daughter writing. In the end, Mary's life returned to Frank's side.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan, nama saya Nofadila Zekiuspa dengan NIM 2020205029. Di sini saya akan membahas pertemuan yang ke-13, yaitu tentang wedding dress. The film tells the story of the wedding fashion designer and single parent named Si Go-woon and who has a little daughter named Jing Sora. While at Sora's school, it was raining and Sora didn't bring an umbrella. He waited for the rain to stop. His mother came at high speed. We were already crying, just amazing. The dress only arrived 10 minutes. The bird chill and doesn't care about the people around her. That's because his mother often left his to work. Sora became too mature for a child his age. Sora is tall as a close child. He is smart but doesn't get along with his friends. Whenever he takes her to ballet lessons, Sora hangs out the decor class in the next room and with very heartbroken and supportive because there are no taken studies in his class. Gowon has stomach cancer. Knowing that her life will not be long,
My name is Ula Nuria Haranti with student ID number 2020-205030 from English Education Study Program 1. First, wedding dress. This film tells the story of Soo Go-eun, a single parent who works as a wedding dress designer who lives with her daughter Sora. Her days are only spent working, so she neglects her duties as a mother. This is what makes Sora accustomed to living alone. One time, Go-eun felt sick and finally went to the doctor, but she had to accept the harsh reality when the doctor sentenced her to stomach cancer and her life would not be long. It was then that Go-eun started spending more time with Sora. However, Sora begins to become suspicious of her mothers who love her jobs, which turns into more time with her. The mother will obey all that is asked of her child. Sora was a bright child, so it didn't take her long to find out that her mother was seriously ill. One time, Go-eun fell unconscious. Then, at the hospital, the doctor told her sister that Go-eun had cancer. Go-eun just smiled sadly. The climax of the story is when Sora spends the night in the hospital. Her mother's condition got worse.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Lola Sepia with student number 2020-205031. In this video, I will fulfill my assignment of literal reading, which is to make a summary of the film. Without any further ado, so let's check it out. Summary of Wedding Dress Film. Go-won is a single mother who has one daughter named Sora who is still in elementary school. Ko-won works as a bridal fashion designer at a fashion house in Korea. Ko-won has cancer which causes her to have regular checkups and take medicine. Towards Sora, she always seems strong, tough, and cheerful. Sora doesn't know about her mother's illness. Sora is an introverted child. This is what causes Sora to have no friends. In addition, Sora also knows the condition of her mother, who often takes medicine in various circumstances, both when she isn't sick or when she is enduring pain, but she doesn't dare to ask her mother directly about her health. She chose to remain silent and pretended not to know his mother's sick condition, but she still tried to make sure about his mother's illness by asking his aunt, who was his mother's sister-in-law, directly. Sora gradually begins to understand her mother's expectation for her. She also tries to improve her social relations with the people around her. She also becomes diligent in practicing ballet so that she can take part in the ballet competition that will be held soon. Sora enlists the help of her friends to visit her mother at the hospital. Seeing Sora bringing her friends over to see her, Ko-won feels very happy. Moreover, she also knows that Sora will be participating in ballet competition in the near future, and she tries his best so that she can come to see his daughter performance. Everything Sora did managed to make Ko-won happy and became relieved to leave Sora. Thank you, that's all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mutiara Alifa with the student number 2020-205032, and in this video I want to read a summary of Wedding Dress movie. This film tells of bright fashion designer and single parent named So Go-woon, who has a small daughter named Jang Sura. So Go-woon, aka the mother, is very busy with her work, while Sura always feels unnoticed, so that she becomes a stubborn child and doesn't care about the people around her. In an instant, mother changed. At first, Mrs. Sura was a workaholic. She spends her time in the office. Even Sura is often invited to her office. Go-won always tried to appear cheerful in front of everyone. Her mother had an idea to invite Sura's friend to celebrate a birthday. At first, Sura was willing to invite them and almost gave her birthday party invitation to her friends, but she refused to do so. When she came home, her house was decorated with all the birthday party knickknacks. Sura didn't care. She went to her room and did her homework wearing a birthday party hat. Then they both danced. Some time later, her mother was hospitalized, and she tried to fulfill all her mother's wishes. Combed her own hair, made friends with other people who made up Gina, then invite her friends to visit her mother. Before her mother died, she had prepared a special design for Sura's wedding dress, and then at the end of the film, Sura, who has grown up, wears the wedding dress that her mother had designed for her. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan, nama saya Naifa Melia, NIM 2020205033. Hari ini saya akan menceritakan alur cerita Wedding Dress. The film Wedding Dress tells the story of a mother named Go-eun who has time to live and tries to spend a little more time with her daughter, Sora. Go-eun is a wedding dress designer. She has a daughter named Sora. Go-eun took Sora to her ballet lessons. Sora doesn't go to ballet class because they are friends. Go-eun and one of her friends, Gina have a bad relationships. Once upon a time, Gina drank Sora's milk. Sora is a person who really doesn't like when her food is tasted or eaten by people. She older brother's sessions. The older brother just got a promotions. Knowing this, Go-eun immediately asked her brother to buy a car, but her brother refused and left. The next day, she was at her auntie's house. Go-eun always left to her brother-in-law's place. Sora also asked her aunt to take her. On the day, Sora also told that she was yesterday. Aunt confirmed that her mother was sick, but the aunt kept in comfort and said that she would be fine. Sora asked her aunt to be honest.
And finally, she knows if her mother is not good. Sora also came to the hospital with friends, and Go-eun was very happy to see it. That night, Go-eun and Sora slept together. Sora didn't want to sleep because she wants to listen to the radio. Go-eun smiled, and the next day, Go-eun already left.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dini Lorenza with study number 2020-5034. Here I will tell you a film called Wedding Dress. This film tells the story of a mother who works as a wedding dress designer. This mother has a child named Sora. Sora is tall as a close child. He is intelligent but does not get along well with his peers. One day, the mother was diagnosed with gastric cancer. He did not tell this to Sora. However, after the verdict came out, the mother decided to spend more time with her only child. He knew that he would not live long. When he was in the hospital overnight, his mother's condition was getting worse. He climbed into the hospital bed and slept with his mother. The next morning, Sora woke up beside his mother. Then Sora got off the bed and walked to the hospital room door. Outside, she was trying hard not to cry. Before his mother died, he had prepared a special design for Sora's wedding dress. At the end of the film, Sora, who has grown up, wears the wedding dress that her mother had designed for her.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Wedding Dress. This film tells of a bright fashion designer as well as a single parent named So-won who has a small daughter named Jang Sora. So-won is very busy with her work, while Sora always feels unnoticed so that she becomes a stubborn child and doesn't care about the people around her. Because her mother often left her to work, Sora becomes a child who has to mature for her age. She is intelligent but doesn't get along well with her peers. In an instant, mother changed. Sora's mother spent most of her time at the office. However, after being diagnosed with gastric cancer, the mother decided to spend more time with her only child. She knew that she wouldn't live long. Sora was a bit surprised by the change of her mother. Her mother always asked what Sora wanted and then bought everything she wanted. One day, Gowon took Sora to the beach for picnic, and after picnic, they stopped by Gowon's brother's house for the memorial service for her grandmother's death. While praying, Gowon fell unconscious. Then at the hospital, the doctor told her brother that Gowon had cancer. At school, Sora was always alone. Sora is a lover of cleanliness, so Sora cannot share food or drink with others. At dinner, her mother also directed Sora to face her and said that she cannot be like that and mother cannot always be by her side to take care of her. Sora didn't understand what her mother was saying, but Sora is a smart child. It didn't take long for her to know that her mother was seriously ill. Sora always tries to smile in front of her mother. Sometime later, her mother was hospitalized. She tried to grant all her mother's requests. Then she took her friends to visit her mother, went to ballet lessons, and tried to appear in the show because her mother always wanted to see Sora perform on the stage. The climax was when she was spending in the night in the hospital. Her mother's condition was getting worse, so she slept with her mother. Sora fell asleep with the radio still on, and the announcer read a greeting card that was sent to the radio. And the greeting card was from Sora for her mother. The next morning, Sora woke up beside her mother, and she said to her mother who was sleeping. She was trying hard to not cry. She knew that her mother was dead. Sora screamed. Before her mother died, she has prepared a special design for Sora's wedding dress. Finally, Sora, who had grown up, wore the wedding dress that her mother had designed for her. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.